I think it was on Wretched Radio with Todd Friel, and it was so good. It was strong, and I don't want to steal the punchline, but you were basically saying we don't want to use music that comes out of these two institutions. We'll call them institutions because they're not churches. And then you named another institution. What if this institution that Christians know good and well that commits murder? There's the hint. What if they wrote a worship song? Would we play that in our churches? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. I sure do. And I caught a lot of flack for it, but I stand by it, and I'll double down on it.
Okay.
So, and this kind of is related to another point that I guess we'll get to. I guess we could throw it in here now, is the financial aspect of this. So, according to the CCLI agreements, licensing agreements, if a church is doing what they should be doing, then every time a church sings a Bethel song or a Hillsong song or a Elevation song, they're supposed to be sending in money to these respective institutions, these respective, as I've referred to them, goat farms, because they're not churches. They're supposed to be sending money into these organizations. Okay, so you're enriching. Every time you sing one of their songs on a Sunday morning, you're sending in some money to these cults. And the point I make here is this. All right, so they use their music as one of their main revenue streams and one of the main ways that they broaden their tents and bring people into their cultish theological system. So now the argument is, well, some of their songs, the lyrics are okay. Some of their songs have good sound, doctrinally sound lyrics. And you know what? They do. Some of them do. Now, a lot of them don't, but some of them do. I would admit some of their lyrics will pass a doctrinal smell test. And so, well, as long as the doctrine's okay and the lyrics are okay, then it's no problem singing these songs. Well, here's the problem. Let's use this analogy. Let's suppose, and we'll illustrate absurdity by being absurd, but it makes a point. Let's suppose that Planned Parenthood had a board meeting and they said, guys, we really need to bring in some more money to our organization. And does anybody have any ideas? And the guy at the table, he said, oh, I got an idea. Okay, what's your idea? Well, how about let's do this? Let's write some Christian music and we'll make the lyrics pass a doctrinal smell test, because we know the Christians won't sing songs that are just completely outlandish. So let's write some Christian music, and we'll make the lyrics pass a doctrinal smell test, and we'll sell it to the churches. And that way, every time all these evangelical churches sing one of our songs, they're going to be sending us some money. So here's my question: would you, if you knew that the music you were singing, the song you were singing on a Sunday morning, even though it had good lyrics, if you knew that your church was sending in some money every time you sang one of those songs to Planned Parenthood, would you sing it? And I dare say that 99.99% of evangelicals would say, no, we're not. I wouldn't sing that song. I don't care how good the lyrics are. I'm not sending money to Planned Parenthood. Rightly so. I would submit that by singing Hillsong and Elevation and Bethel music, when you sing their song, then you send them money. I would submit that is worse than the illustration of Planned Parenthood, because you are sending in money to a cult. You are sending in money to a cult that preaches a different Jesus and a different gospel that is leading millions upon millions of people straight down the primrose path to hell. Planned Parenthood is horrific. They murder babies, but they're lost. They're lost. Lost people do what lost people do. Doesn't excuse it. They will give an account one day. But Bethel and Hillsong and Elevation, they claim to be Christians. And I would argue that what they are doing is worse than what Planned Parenthood is doing, because they are blaspheming Christ. bringing reproach on the name of Christ, falsely prophesying in the name of Christ, preaching a false Jesus and a false gospel, and leading people to hell under the supposed banner of Christ. So if there's anything worse than Planned Parenthood, it's that. And a lot of people really bristled and they didn't like that, but I stand by it, and I would just defy anyone to biblically show me where that logic breaks down.
Yep. And if not, just for the sake of argument, if not morally more heinous, one of the big things that you're arguing is that the result, the effect, is more heinous, because you're talking about ultimately the end. With Planned Parenthood, you're talking about physical murder, so the end of the physical life. But in the case of false churches that are preaching damnable doctrine, you're not just talking about the end of physical life, but you're ultimately talking about leading people to hell. So you're talking about eternal death. And so I think it's a fair point. But I think that's really helpful because a lot of people just probably aren't aware of that. Maybe some pastors are listening to this episode. They may not be aware that if they're doing what they're actually supposed to be doing, there are royalties. Somebody writes a song and you don't just get to use it for free. And so it is that financial support. So there's kind of three big reasons that I wanted to discuss with you why churches shouldn't use Hillsong or Bethel music for worship. And so the first one is they're not churches. They're not true churches. They're preaching and supporting heresy. And so we don't want our worship music to come from heretics. And so that's the first reason. The next two reasons that we're going to get to are actually different than the financial reason you brought. So we'll call that, if nothing else, we'll call that our fourth bonus reason, because I wasn't even really thinking about that, but that's a really good point that not only one reason is that these aren't true churches. Another reason is that by utilizing their music in a worship service on Sunday, your church is actually supporting the prosperity gospel. In the same way that you would support a missionary, it's like our church. You could say that. You could say, what is your what ministries does your church support? Well, we support this missionary, in Zambia, and we also support Bill Johnson and Hillsong. And it's like, wait a second. So I think that's a really strong and really well made argument. Thanks for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, we hope that you'll take a moment and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can watch more content like this. Also, take a moment and give this video a like so that it can reach more people. And take a moment and click on the bell so that you'll be notified whenever we come out with new content. Thanks so much. God bless.